just maybe to kick off, because I'm going to get a bit serious first,
Yeah.
and we're going to get a little bit more fun as we move on. But just to recap, a huge honour to have you here. Thank you very much for choosing AmCham EU as the platform. We're very proud about that, and we know we've heard some very powerful messages that you've delivered to us tonight, and we know that's important for you. I think it's important also, we're very pleased that the message has been heard here. I know you've written also that GE, and you've alluded to it already today, that GE is not just a US company, but it's a European company. And basically that's what we are here when we talk about AmCham EU. In fact, exactly that, 162 companies, we say US companies committed to Europe, basically European companies of American parentage. So I think you're in the right place. But we have an audience today, very mixed actually, with a lot of EU stakeholders as well. So thank you for the opportunity to continue a little bit the conversation. I'm looking forward to it. Maybe, you alluded to the crisis in your remarks. It's about 7 years now since the financial crisis. And for the last year, yes, we've seen some recovery, but there's still some mixed opinions, I would imagine, also in this room. And sorry if I've got my back to the ladies and gentlemen over here. A little bit of mixed opinion on how that recovery is doing. And I know you've said as well, Europe's moving from crisis and stagnation, hopefully, to growth and renewal. But what is your opinion? Maybe you can just expand a little bit more on the European recovery, but not just that. Are we going in the right direction as Europe? And also, how are we comparing there to the US and the emerging economies that you mentioned? So your views.
So I would say, Susan, I would actually begin this with a discussion of the financial crisis, because I think in some ways we're still in that period. And so I think 2015 is a lot like 2014. We're just in a time period of slow growth and volatility. And I think we could very well be in that same pattern for a long period of time. So developed world being 60% of the global economy is maybe a full point below where they were pre-crisis for the previous 25 years. And Europe may do a little bit better, US may do a little bit worse, Japan, but that's kind of the pattern that we're in. So the US might be up 2% instead of up 3%. Europe might be up a half a point or a point instead of up 2 points. And then the emerging markets continue to drive growth, but different actors do well in different times. So Mexico's doing better, Brazil's doing worse. And China in our world is still pretty good, and India's getting better. So I think that's the world we're going to live in for a long period of time. And the issue is that the growth is not fast enough to solve any problem. So in other words, the growth in Europe is better than it was maybe 6 months ago, but it's not so great it's going to solve unemployment. Right? The growth in the US is better than it was, but it's not so great that it's going to resolve social cost issues in the US, right? Budget deficits and things like that. So there's going to have to be more investment in growth. The world is just not growing fast enough for the structure that we're in today. There's high relative unemployment in every corner of the world. So that remains not just a European problem, but a global problem. And then the last point I'd make, Susan, is that the one really earth-shattering difference, let's say, between Europe and the US is Silicon Valley. And this incredible entrepreneurial thesis that's part of the United States. I'll be wrong by a little bit, but CEOs close enough is good enough, right? So something like 20% of the market cap of the S&P 500 is consumer internet stocks, right? And these are companies that didn't exist 15 years ago. And just think about the massive change that's driven. And that's not you have the Mittelstand in Germany, or you have pockets of what I would call small business entrepreneurship. But that needs to be more pervasive in Europe to really get a point of growth, or whatever that might be worth.
Well, that's a pretty timely comment. One of the, apart from yourself, Jeff, there's a buzz around town. So we know there was a buzz when you came, but there's another buzz, which is tomorrow, the imminent announcement of the digital single market strategy. So a lot of people in this room are waiting for that. It's coming out tomorrow, which refers to your comments there. AmCham EU is totally committed, firstly, to the single market, ultimately. And basically, digital underpins everything to do with the single market. Digital basically is transforming the economy, as you just said, referring to Silicon Valley.
So it's a big deal. I think, the industrial internet looks like a marketing buzzword, right? It looks like everybody's new theme and things like that. This is going to transform the industrial world. The capturing of analytics that are coming with the data that's coming off jet engines or gas turbines or MR scanners, this is another wave of growth and productivity. So Europe, the single digital market is a massively big deal, not just for consumer companies, but industrial companies.
But on that note, as a company whose strength lies in industrial engineering, what about digitalization? We've read 90% of your earnings you're expecting from GE to come from industrial businesses by 2018. So what's the impact of digitalization on manufacturing?
So again, all of us do information technology inside our companies and things like that. I think about 5 years ago, we started investing into data science analytics around our installed base. So a jet engine maybe creates, let's say flying between London and Munich generates maybe 1 terabyte of data. And this is real-time fuel data. This is the wear of the blades. This is the heat the engine is running on. It's the flight path and how it compares with the optimal descent of an airplane. Same way with locomotives. So $500 million a year is wasted with locomotives in the US on cracked rails, right? So you can now pick up real time as the train is going over the cracks, where cracks are forming. You can beam that up to a GPS system. I'll just give you just brief snippets. And so we've invested massively in the analytics around our own installed base. And so I grew up in a company, I'm a 33-year GE guy. For the first 25 years, it was, look, you stay out of software. Let the experts do software. And you guys are just machine heads. You just stick to your knitting, I think that's a loser strategy. In the next 20 years, whether it's Siemens, whether it's GE, whether it's Caterpillar, whether it's Rolls-Royce, we're going to be hiring thousands of data scientists. We're going to be working on our own enterprise software. It's transforming. Now I'm taking it back inside our company. And so industrial companies better get on their game as it pertains to big investments in software and analytics. Because in the end, we didn't set out GE to say we want to be a software company per se. But if you want to know more about jet engines than any human being on Earth, for the first 100 years of our existence, that has been about physics and material science. For the next 50 years, it's going to be about that, plus analytics, data, modeling, and the things that go with it. So we're putting our money where our mouth is. We're investing massively in this. And we're still going to have partners, people like Oracle and Cisco and Accenture, people in this room. But we're going to also be doing much more ourselves as it pertains to where this goes.
Okay. I'm going to change the topic slightly. Move on to a theme. And you've been named, some people in this room may already know that, 3 times best CEO in the world, I believe. The world's best CEO 3 times running. That's quite an achievement. Now, you stressed towards the end of your remarks the importance of leadership. And in this room, you've got plenty of leaders. We've got leaders of small companies, to your point, on SMEs, big, European, we've got policymakers. You've even got me. I lead a great team here of 25 people, but it's not to be underestimated. We do great things with that. So maybe on that point, on leadership, what do you think are the key elements that make a good leader?
Oh gosh, I think in the industrial setting, I think you've got to have a real sense of purpose. There really is got to be a vision that you're willing to invest in good times and bad. And particularly given the volatility in the world today, you've got to have consistency of purpose that people follow. So I think that's key. I think persistence. I always quote the great philosopher Mike Tyson, who says that everybody has a strategy till they get punched in the nose, right? And so it's GE's been around for 140 years, not because we've always been a perfect company, but because we've been a resilient company, we've been a learning company, we're willing to try things and change and do different things. We had been big in financial services for 60 years. The company in a very, I'd say, hard-nosed way looks to see whether that's the best allocation of capital. We decided it isn't. We changed dramatically, and we've always been willing to do that. And then the last thing I would just say is people, just a real focus on training, education, leadership development, nurturing people is really key. I mean, I could talk about a lot of other things, but I just think purpose, persistence, people would be things I would talk about in terms of how companies can be successful.
Great. Well, it's the 3 Ps, so we'll take that away with us. So I think we're gonna. I can see the drinks are in the corner there, Jeff. We're gonna maybe close it there. Thank you very much indeed.
Great.
It's been insightful, enlightening. It's been fun to talk to you. I think on behalf of everybody here, and that we do have a room full of Europeans here, I would like to say. So I'm very glad that you said you like Europeans, because that's pretty good, because we're going to have a drink with you now.
Good.
And we like Americans too. I'm a European leading the AmCham, so it's just as well we like each other. I would like to say, in true European and Brussels style, that what we'd like to do now is continue the dialogue over a drink. Thank you very much for taking the time out of your schedule to meet with us. Thanks from everyone here, and to everybody, thank you very much for coming, and enjoy the rest of the evening.
Great, thanks.
Jeff.
Thank you very much. Thanks.